All right, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to 18 Summers. I know everyone's running around right now, but I wanted to follow up with a couple of announcements that we have for our whole community. That some of you probably got the email, but wanted to just give you an overall view of what we're going to be doing in the coming weeks to support you, because we've been getting a lot of calls, doing a lot of interviews, and it's an odd time right now. Let's just face what it is. It's an odd time. There's some sad things going on. There's some opportunities out there, but it's a confusing time. And the first thing that we want is to keep our family intact. And I know that what we've been working on for years can help you with that. So let me just go over a couple of things of what we're going to be doing as a community to help you. Been sitting with our team, fielding a lot of calls, and with all of the busyness and the confusion, we want to try to really be easier to find. So what we're going to be doing is, we'll be updating during the week, but what we're going to really be focusing on is Family Fridays. We've always found Family Fridays is something that we've done with smaller groups that we have, just kind of a reconnection time to go over bigger issues, tips, tricks, things that are happening that we need to talk about. So Family Fridays are going to be looking like this. With our 18 Summers community, first thing that we'll be doing, we'll be hitting on a head topic every Friday that we think is going to support you, resources, things that are really in the need right now for the changes that we're going through with the coronavirus and everything else. We're also going to be doing one thought leader of the week. I don't only want my wisdom and Jamie's wisdom, but we want to be reaching out to our tribe. So we have a couple of our tribe members that are, I consider, thought leaders in subjects that are super important right now coming on. So you'll be getting a Facebook Live every Friday at 11 a.m. And then later in the day, we'll be releasing an interview I'm doing with a thought leader. Now, the first thought leader we're going to be doing it with is a good friend of mine that I've known for over 10 years, Philip McKernan. A lot of you know Philip. Our families have been friends for years. He's been a friend, a mentor, a challenger of me to do certain things. What I think he's great at is bringing clarity in tough times and in tough decisions, which has been absolutely key to me with the directions I've taken my business and life into. And he's been a big part of that. And I know that him and I shared something that was really important. And that was 2008. We both were real estate investors in 2008. It was not an easy time. We survived it, but it was a kindred spirit that brought us together over 10 years ago with that. So you'll be hearing an interview that Philip and I are doing today, where we're going to go into some pretty candid conversations around families, around difficulties, things that we can look forward to, challenges that we've been through and how we've overcome them. And hopefully it can give some inspiration and grounding to what you guys are all facing today. And then speaking of which, our friend Dave Rendall. So for the next 3 weeks, let me tell you who's going to be on for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be having this week our good friend Philip McKernan, who is expert at clarity and bringing courage in tough times. Been a huge coach and friend to me for years. Next week, we're going to be having my good friend Tim Story. Tim is an incredible person. Saw me speaking quite a while back. Me and Leland at an event. Tim is the life coach to some pretty big people out there. In fact, when Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, came out of rehab, and as if you remembered, he struggled with addiction for years, he lived with Tim for the first 6 months. So that when Robert Downey Jr. got his life back on track, it was living with Tim for the first 6 months. And Tim is coaches to so many people that he can't even tell me about. It's incredible, but he's been a big part of our family as well. And we're super excited to have him on because he's called the Comeback Kid. He's helped people come back from situations that you wouldn't believe. And I know the principles he teaches will be huge for sharing with our community, not only as adults, but as children as well. Tim has a real gentle spirit that has strength, but also justified hope, which is great. And then our friend Dave Rendall, who's watching right now. There have been few things that have influenced my family as much as the freak factor. And what I found is with myself and my children, we each have our own individual talents and abilities. And if we're given the space to focus on those and uncover those, man, life gets a lot easier. Life gets a lot more enjoyable. And that's really important to me. So in the coming weeks with Philip this week, Tim next week, and then the following week, Dave Rendall, we're going to be going over the freak factor with Dave, which is one of the best things I've ever done for myself or my children. And we're hoping that if we're going to have to be home, let's make the most of this. Let's get to know ourselves, get to know our family, and to be able to better support each other. And I know with this first lineup with Philip McKernan coming on to talk about, clarity in tough times, Tim Story talking about, the comeback kid, how he helped, some of the worst cases in the world overcome addictions and bankruptcies and things, and kind of the framework to that. And then our good friend Dave Rendall, whose Freak Factor has had a huge influence on not only mine and Jamie's life, but our children's life, to better direct them on what their gifts and talents are. Now, that's what's going to be coming up for the next few weeks. Every week we'll release the interview, but Jamie and I are going to do a Facebook Live at 11 o'clock to discuss issues of importance. Now, the issue of importance that I want to talk about today, real quick, and we won't stay on for too long though, guys, is I want to talk about this concept of tech distancing. Anything from when I've reached out to people or I've been doing calls, the technology is saving us where we're all able to still communicate, but it's also that blessing and a curse at the same time. We are flat out getting overwhelmed. Now with parents, the thing that I'm hearing about, hey Walter, good to see you, buddy. So the thing I'm hearing from so many people is, I don't like how much my children are on their electronics, but hey, they have to be able to communicate with their friends. I believe in that 100%. What I also believe in, we don't want to stand at the buffet all day and eat, because we're going to get indigestion, we're going to get heavy and out of shape. We don't want that. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about the tech distancing we've been trying to put into effect in our own home, and some things I think that you can do fairly with your children. And you need to be the leader. We say, well, we're just going to let our kids do what they want. That's not a good thing to do right now. There has to be some leader. I love Cesar Millan's, the pack leader, where he's calm and assertive. There's certain things in these moments I believe you're going to have to show leadership in. And that's really important to guide our families through this. And I think that's going to show up in your business life as well if you start with your family. So tech distancing. Let me give you guys a quick stat that some of you have heard me say. 60 years ago, the average dinner time for the average family, 90 minutes. 90 minutes was the average dinner time. Today, the average dinner time, 12 minutes. Okay, so let's think about that. 60 years ago was 90 minutes. Today, over this recent study, 12 minutes. Now, what is the reason for that? Well, there's lots of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons was we're rushing off to something, to that next text, to that next video game, to that next news update, to that next email, text. Again, we have to have periods of complete and total unavailability, even being home, to reconnect with the people in front of you, because you will not connect with the people in front of you if your phone is on you all the time. It is absolutely physiologically and mentally impossible to do so. The science has shown it. So here's what we want to say. We want to create a truce with our kids. I'm not asking you to put them in bondage and not let them speak with their friends or have outlets. Absolutely not. But we also want to put some parameters. We want to do some tech fasting or tech distancing. So let me give you the first idea that we came up with, which works really well for our family. We were doing this before, but now we're getting other families to do it. You guys are probably overwhelmed. You're probably feeling some stress. You've lost some income. There's unknown things in business. Your kids are getting a little grumpy because they're tied up. In fact, when I've interviewed all my kids, the things they said is, we miss seeing our friends, we miss going places, we miss seeing our friends. So that's a pretty complete list. So we have to fill in some real connection points, but I think it's important that the family gets intact now. So our dinner time challenge, which we're going to start putting out there more, try to set dinner at the same time every day, 5:30 to 6:30, 6 to 7, whatever works for you. And I challenge you to do tech distancing for that full hour. Now, it might not take you an hour to eat, but if you turn off all laptops, all phones, all the news, and you're just there with your family just for an hour, this becomes a support beam for you, a piling. Like, we live next to the beach. The pilings, that put the house on top of it, so if the water flows in and out, it doesn't go anywhere. This becomes such a grounding mechanism for your family. Because if you have no distraction, you're not getting the recent corona update virus every 7 minutes, your kid's not going off to the next thread, you're going to be there for each other. And when we started doing this, and we've been doing this for a while, we actually are up to 2 hours, but I encourage you to start with 1 hour. We had better conversation. We started asking more questions. One of our core values was adventure. We started to plan more adventures. And for you guys that are overwhelmed with work life, things that are out of your control, it's almost like a gift. You're giving yourself this time where you are completely off. You are having this gift every day of being with your family right there, the old-fashioned dinner time. And it's not going to be 12 minutes. Make it an hour. Yeah, you might feel weird at first, like, oh, what do we do for a full hour? That's okay. But I find that most people feel more grounded, more relaxed, more connected to their family. You're almost recharged. So if you have to go back and do some work later after dinner, you're going to be more ready for it. You're going to be more present for it. Just the same way when you do some tech distancing for that hour, you are going to be there with your family for real, not sitting there and then doing that quick text. Because once you do that, your mind is gone elsewhere. So tech distancing is very important. Now, for us and our children too, again, I feel you have to be the pack leader, calm and assertive. I've read the studies. I'm not a scientist, but man, I have some really smart friends. Being on technology too much is not good. Period, end of story. I'm not saying I'm not using it to stay in touch with my friends, but I am taking breaks. So here's what we've done for our kids, and we did this again before the coronavirus. I believe in teaching our kids budgeting, but I don't want to chase them. Like, how long have you been on your phones? What are you on? So what we do is my wife is the master account. There's a family plan that's set up. If they're going to upload an app, my wife has to give permission. And now, and I don't have it, I can get you guys the information right through your Apple phone. Apple can guide you through. You can actually set up with your children where we give our sons 2 hours a day on apps and social media. They get 2 hours a day. They can still text and call. Like my oldest son has a girlfriend, really sweet girl, and they like to get on the phone and FaceTime and that's great. But I don't feel at this time, we're giving them 2 hours because they have other things they can do. We can still get outside there, and they're their own budgeting. Now, we all get caught up in that scrolling. I do. I'm reloaded Freedom app, if you guys know what that is, on my phone because I don't want to get caught up in that. But with our kids, we give them that budgeting. And once that runs out, that runs out. And did they like it at first? No. And maybe you're saying it's longer, but let's go to the extreme. If your children sit there and scroll on social media for 7 hours in a day, and we saw that before we started to put parameters on it, do they feel better? Do they really feel more connected? It's like when we used to be sick at home. Remember when you used to be sick as a kid? You'd stay home, you'd be like, great, I'm going to watch a movie. You always felt better after the first movie. After the fourth movie, you were feeling exhausted. You were just not wanting to do it. And I think that's something important that you want to consider with your own children and yourself. Give yourself some distancing. I am trying now not to get on to any electronics with the exception of doing my sunrise stuff that I send to you guys in the morning. I'm not looking at anything really until between 8:30 and 9. I want that time in the morning to exercise, to meditate, to really reflect and calm down. Then I'm taking a break at lunch and then my dinner time break. I'm not getting on. And I'm also taking breaks during the day because I'm doing some big strategizing with my business. And if I'm constantly checking a text or an email, you can't do deep work. I'm a big fan of Cal Newport. I'm actually reading his book again right now. He talks about that deep work. So this tech distancing, to not get overwhelmed and to actually be there for the people that are in front of you, is absolutely huge. So here's what I encourage you guys to start with. Start with dinner time. Do some tech distancing to have a set dinner the same time every night. 60 years ago it was 90 minutes long. The average today is 12 minutes. Meet us in the middle. Go for 60 minutes when you're going to be able to have a dinner with everyone's phone off. See what happens. See what happens. After that, I think you should sit down with your kids and set some fair budgets. I know a couple of you come to me and said they're on all the time. Maybe you want to be more liberal with what you set as their budget. We set 2 hours for apps, games, and social media. They can still text and make phone calls, but we just wanted to cut down that screen time. And that's what we did. But talk with them, and you have to make the decision. Maybe you're going to give them 3 hours, maybe 4. But I don't encourage any kid should be on for 8 or 9 hours. I mean, the studies are there. It's not helpful. Would I say cut off their phone completely? No, they're trapped home. They want to see their friends. Let them get on a Zoom call. Let them have FaceTimes and interactions on social media. But to sit there mindlessly scrolling, it's what Dr. Ned Hollowell calls screen sucking. It's bad for your brain. And when they turn it off, they become cranky. They become agitated. We all do. That's us included. I'm the worst case. When I designed my board meeting strategy, the reason I did it is because I had that tendency towards tech addiction. I'm not a big drinker, I don't smoke or anything, but tech, that was something that I had to really put some boundaries on. So I'm continuing to try to do that and set the example. And that is key in this tech distancing. If you're never putting your phone down, if you're always checking it, first of all, you're not present for your family. And secondly, why would your kids ever consider doing it? It does have to trickle down. So the one thing my boys have said, well, yeah, I know dad does his tech fasting. I've actually gotten pretty good at it. Well, I will shut down for hours at a time, even days at a time. That might not be the timing right now with what you're going through, but I do promise you, if you will simply just keep this in mind, this tech distancing, and I've given you some good ways to start. Start with dinner time. Start with times in the day. Set a budget with your kids and don't be having to check. Get it automatically ingrained on the phone. And I think you're going to feel more relaxed. But just starting with that 1 hour a day when everyone's phones are off, it is a reconnection time that I can't even explain to you, where I've had conversations, I've had inspiration, I've been able to really look at my kids and just laugh. Like, we've laughed at the dinner table. Unlike 2008, where I let it overwhelm me because I came that close to bankruptcy, my wife has actually said to me, and she just came in, she's sitting here, she says, "You've been unbelievably jolly and jovial. I have refused to let this dampen me down, to let this lower me down. I'm just not going to do it this time." 2008, I think I had my self-worth and my net worth tied up together. A mentor of mine taught me they have nothing to do with one another. And I think that's important for you. And taking this time off from tech has really given me that focus with my family. I remember just looking at my little 3-year-old yesterday. He was at the table making us all laugh. He's trying to explain this story. None of us can understand. We're all belly laughing at the table. And if I had gotten that zzz in my pocket and checked that text that, "Oh, this person's having a problem, they really need to talk to you now. Hey, Leora, good old friend there, good to see you," then how would I have seen that? I wouldn't have been there for him. I wouldn't have had that moment. I just refuse to let this take me down. And believe me, I've had some friends already in New York and New Jersey pass away from this. Does that make me sad? Of course it does. But if someone like my literary hero, Viktor Frankl, could aim to make jokes while he was still in Auschwitz and to dream of what he's going to do after Auschwitz, I can do the same thing. I feel better prepared than I ever was for 2008, so that does help. But again, I've had challenges and setbacks and had to have some very heavy conversations with people that we work with. You know, how can they actually stay in focus with their family when they've lost 90% of their income? They've had to fire 80% of their staff. I get it. So I'm handling some big calls. But again, I've just set an intention that I'm not going to let this get me down. I am going to enjoy the fact that I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm next to the beach, my whole family is here. You know, my 75-year-old self would be saying, "Jim, you're not going to have an opportunity like this maybe ever again." Just the teen grumpiness once in a while and the occasional meltdown, that's the good stuff. You know, just please, eat this up. You've been through tough business times before. You'll take care of this, and plus, look at help your friends that are way worse off. My friends in retail, my friends that are in restaurant business, man, I really feel for them. Because I was there in '08. I was the front line. It's not that real estate's not being affected. It is, but not to the degree of some of my other friends. But I've just set that intention. I'm not going to let this get me down. And one of the ways that I've felt myself either getting overwhelmed or regrounded and inspired is doing some tech distancing. Starting with dinner time, starting with the morning where I don't wake up and just check the news or email right away. I give myself space from that. So a few of you had reached out to us, and that's a big conversation we've had with this tech distancing. Of course, they've informed. I'm having to FaceTime my parents, which of course we want to do, but we don't need to be doing that all the time. We just simply don't. And for people like any of you out there going through business challenges, I've gotten my best thinking done when I've turned off my phone, when I'm unavailable. I actually have learned too. Let me give you this last tip before we shut off. For tech distancing, I know my self-control and I know my lack of self-control. And if I just put my phone on the counter, let's say near our main island in the kitchen, I put it on the counter and I'm 3 feet from it, I can have that impulse to pick it up and check real quick. Oh, well, let me just Google this thing real quick. Someone texted me, I just heard the buzz. So what I've actually done is physical distancing from my tech as well. If I'm doing some tech distancing or a tech fast, my phone goes in my computer bag. I take my computer bag, I walk it up to our front room where there's a big supply closet. I walk the bag into the back of the supply closet, put it back there, leave it there, and walk out. Now, when I'm supposed to be writing or I'm supposed to be playing with my kids on the trampoline, if there's even that impulse to check a text, to check an email, and I don't even have email on my phone, so it's more text or social media that I'd be getting updated on, I can't. That impulse goes away where I'm like, oh man, well, I have to go to the back of the closet right now and undo the thing and get it out. So I've actually done physical distancing to help with my tech distancing. So hopefully this has been helpful, guys. Again, every Friday, do you want to say hi, sweetheart? I'm in, maybe you can put one of these in.
I'm safe.
But oh, she's gonna wave.
I was
So
listening.
anyway, obviously a lot of you guys have saying, hey, obviously family life has been turned upside down and mixed up. We are far from perfect. In fact, I think that's why we wanted to do this, because we're not the perfect family. We don't ever want to try to be. I think perfect and family was never supposed to be put together. But we have really worked hard to learn some lessons and work with people over the last 10 years to help prepare for times of unknown and challenges. And that's when we're in right now. So my goal is to stay in better contact. That's my commitment to you. I've let my teams know that I am going to be obviously holding together my real estate investment company and supporting my investors in that. But I'm going to be very committed over the next few weeks, especially to help families. And that's really important to us. And it's great to see so many people that we've worked with on different levels before. But I want to make the lessons simple. I want to make them accessible. I want to make them easy to buy into, to actually take action on and see results for. I think that's what we really pride ourselves on. And I'm gonna beat the dead horse on a few things. This intermittent tech fasting, this tech distancing is absolutely key. So put a few parameters around that, and don't be afraid to be the pack leader. Calm and assertive. If you're not comfortable with your children being on tech all day, they shouldn't be. It's plain and simple. You have to be the leader of the family, and you can put parameters on their phone where they're still able to be in contact and socialize, but they're not getting into that screen sucking. So we will be doing an interview with my good buddy Philip McKernan in about an hour. Him and I are going to have a very candid conversation with most people have never even heard. Him and I became friends and kindred spirits over 10 years ago because we both barely survived the 2008 meltdown. Through real estate investing, it was a very hard time. Asking for help was difficult for both of us. And we both have kind of that quirky Irish sense of humor. But we're going to go into some deep talks about how we overcame that, the struggles we're having with our own family, and things we've been finding help people. So that'll be coming out, and then Tim's story next week, Dave Rendall. But again, I want to definitely be in better contact. You guys, my commitment is every Friday at 11, you guys are going to have me here. You can ask questions. It's nice to see people that we've worked with before. Remember, signing off with this, nobody is getting it perfect. Nobody. Everyone who's done that schedule, get your schedule together. And we've done that. 4 revisions, 4. So if you're having to redo it because it didn't work, don't beat yourself up. None of us have ever been into this. We're making a schedule without ever being in the trenches in this way before. So no one's getting it perfect. There's going to be shortness of patience, unknowns, anxiety, some grumpiness. But no one's perfect. No one's getting it perfect, and we're all still learning. I'm sure you guys heard that Maggie 6-8 months ago watched Kung Fu Panda, and she karate kicked Sammy, and it actually hit him in the chest, and it was like, ugh. And I yelled at her across the room, "What are you doing? Don't do that." Jamie stays more calm. I'm the one to more react. And she got sad because I really raised my voice in that, and she hadn't meant to kick him. And so I'd call her over and sit her on my lap. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled so loud. I just got nervous with hitting Sammy. You shouldn't do that." She's like, "I know, Dad, it's okay. We're all still learning." And we still talk about that to this day. It's kind of become our family mantra. Instead of like, "You should have known better. You should have known I was on that call. You should have known I had this homework. You should have known that I missed my friends and feeling down." Look, we're all still learning. And if we take that attitude with ourselves, with our teens, with our toddlers, through this whole situation, I think it's going to be a lot better. So our commitment is very clear, guys. Family Fridays are going to be big for us. I will be here every Friday at 11 going over big things like tech distancing, overcoming challenges with this new homeschool situation everyone's being put in, setbacks. How do you handle setbacks in business and still be there for your family? We're going to go into some really deep things at this call at 11. I want to make sure you have a chance to answer questions. And then I'm trying to bring in a thought leader that's had an effect on our own family for you guys, and just have seriously candid conversations with them. No sugarcoating, no bullshit, so that you guys can hopefully get a little bit of guidance and clearance. So please don't be afraid to reach out to us. We're going to be here again doing little updates during the week. One of the things that I found really fun is I'm going to set an intention to do the sunrise every morning for you guys. People seem to really like that. I love it, and I know a lot of people are in lockdown, so they can't see it, so that's the least I could share. And we'll be there through the week, but Friday's going to be the day. Family Fridays is when you're going to be able to really find us. We'll be here everything at 11 with questions, hitting big topics right into us with what you want us to go over. And later in the day, we're going to be releasing an expert interview, a thought leader interview. This week, it'll be Philip McKernan, a very good friend of mine who's helped me with clarity and purpose in my life, overcoming tough times. Our good friend Tim Story next week, who again, he is known as the comeback kid. He has helped, like Robert Downey Jr., like I said, lived with him the first 6 months after rehab, after his final time where he actually got clean and has now had an incredible life when most people thought he was going to die. And that's Tim Story, who is at the helm of that. He's become a good friend and a mentor of our family, has a great gentle spirit and a good message that you can follow. And then our good friend Dave Rendall the week after. I love the Freak Factor. We all want to better support our kids in this time. If we can find what their freak factor is, which you're going to learn how to do, man, it does a lot for yourself and your family. So it's great seeing you guys. Thank you for being here. We'll be releasing the interview later this afternoon. But remember, today's lesson was about tech distancing. It's okay to turn off. You will do better if you turn off with your strategizing, your deep thinking if you do. Set a time for dinner the same time every day and commit to an hour. See what happens. It's an experiment. See what happens. I know you're going to feel more connected, more grounded, more resolved if you set that intention right there. And then I think after you do that, you're going to start to do it more during the day. And don't be afraid to lead your children. If you don't want them on tech all the time, set parameters, set it on their phone so you're not chasing them. They now have to budget it themselves. And that it is. You might not feel what we do at 2 hours for social media and games is fair. You might say, oh, I want to give them 3 or 4. That's up to you. But at least it doesn't go to 9 or 10. And that's happening. And kids are going to get grumpier, and it's going to not give us the effect that we're looking for. So anyway, love you guys. It's great to see some of these names of our old friend Leora, our good retreat buddy, and the Umlaufs out there, and my wife, and Lauren, friend from high school, and so many more of you guys. I can't even scroll the whole thing. Oh, and my cousin from Ireland, who we love very much, and she's a nurse. Stay safe. We love you.